Howdy, folks. Happy Monday. Just to let everybody know, if anybody's interested, I know Terry 3Gs is obsessed with the Tang talk. We did do a Tang taste test. That's 3 T's there on the Off the Post show. And I gave my ratings on X for the varieties of Tang. We may try to find more Tang out there, more different flavors. There are ones that are distributed internationally, but I'm afraid of getting poisoned by fentanyl. So I don't know if I'm going to buy them on eBay or anything like that. So we'll see. But we'll start with the pre-show. Go ahead, Ross.
All right. So obviously I'm wearing a Jet shirt. I'm always going to wear a Jet shirt. Am I going to be happy about it? No. Here's my take on what's happening with this team. Mm-hmm. Right now, Aaron Rodgers, he's not the same guy. So this is going to be a scrapped deal here with them. So what I would do, and I wrote about it on Sportsology, and you're going to have to go read most of it because it's painful. But what I would do is you have to start over. You trade everybody you can right now. Rodgers finishes out the season or he walks away. Either way, it doesn't matter because they'd have to win like 8 in a row really to kind of be a contender. And so it's not going to happen. So that's my take on it. My original thought was, if you remember, beginning of the season, 9 or 10 wins. They're not getting that. They might get 6.
So you're saying trade
Devontae?
You're not saying trade Breece Hall because he's young.
No. There's certain guys that are young but these Rodgers friends, you got to get rid of them all.
Trade Lazard, trade Devontae. Well, you just got Devontae Adams.
Doesn't matter. You trade him anyhow.
Trade Devontae Adams. You're not saying trade Quinn and Williams. What about Reddick? There's that clause in the contract.
Yeah, Reddick. Yeah, I'm trading Reddick to the AFC. I don't care. He was invisible. I mean,
the AFC. Okay. Yeah, because it's the NFC that's the clause.
Right.
Okay.
I'm just getting what I can. And then the rest I put on there. But that's what I would do. Rodgers needs to look at himself in the mirror and retire.
Well, the funny thing was, and I can't remember who it was, but there was somebody out there online that it was I think it was Greenberg, who was basically saying, shouldn't the Jets have learned their lesson with Brett Favre, former Green Bay quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, former Green Bay. I mean, that has nothing to do with the former Green Bay. It's the fact that they're 40 years old.
I don't know what he's talking about. Green Bay is a tremendous organization. Green Bay has started over twice, once after Favre, once after Rodgers, and they're back to being a contender again in a short amount of time.
Right. And they knew,
so they know what they're doing.
And they knew when to cut bait. What I think
they do. Like, they're smart, and that's the thing. The Jets aren't smart like that. They're not cunning like that. And until they are.
And I think what Greenberg is saying is they should have learned the lesson from Favre, where he was 40 years old. He didn't really want to play to the Jets, but he couldn't go to Minnesota. They wouldn't trade him to Minnesota. So he played for the Jets for a year, then went to Minnesota. And here in this instance, you have a 40-year-old Rodgers who was fading when he was in Green Bay. Right. And so they should have learned their lesson, but they're –
but they sold tickets, Mike. We can't forget about that part of the business.
I'm sorry to use this phrase and we get us an X rating, but they're star fuckers. They always need the big name. Okay, get the big name when the guy's in his prime. Now he's
that doesn't happen. And Rodgers, people will go now for the rest of the year. Some people to see Rodgers one more time, and that's fine. It'll be and that's it. That's what you should do.
Okay, well, one thing about we could just talk about the World Series, which is painful because
the World Series, yes, let's talk about that.
I'm sure. I'm sure you're just rubbing your hands with glee.
I mean, I'm not rubbing my hands. Did it put a smile to my face? Would I lie?
Well, okay, this is a statement on you. You're rooting for the team that beat your team, you piece of crap. I mean,
hold on. Way before I ever knew who Mike Ogello was or cared, I hated the Yankees.
Of course you did.
So, why in the world would you soften me up to the Yankees? It's not going to happen.
I'm not saying soften you up. You're talking about the team that beat your team.
I don't care.
Oh, my God. I mean, that's ridiculous.
I am a National League fan first.
Okay, well.
The only time I made an exception was when the Phillies were in it. Then I rooted for the Yankees. But that was out of, necessity.
Oh, my God. But okay. the Aaron Boone haters could not say anything through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs again, because of, even like critics of him said, well, he made every move was, he brought in relievers at the right time. And then in game 1 of this series, no one can explain why he brings a guy in who hadn't pitched in 5 weeks, who is a starter, why he brings him in a closing situation when you had a left-handed reliever who'd been pitching for you since, I think, July, who'd been one of the best left-handed relievers in the American League, Hill, who's a submarining lefty, which is bizarre. And he had 2 lefties coming up in Ohtani and in Freeman. And, I mean, okay, Cortez got Ohtani out. Then they intentionally walked Betts, which was the right move to make. But then you have Freeman, who's like mimicking Kirk Gibson playing on one leg, and he hits it out of the. I mean, even the staunchest Yankee defenders were basically saying, "Aaron, you fucked up."
Okay, so 2 things on that. Because I was talking to Wayne Fish about it, because we always talk baseball. So the first thing is, I wouldn't have brought in Cortez. I've got to bring in a guy who could throw heat. I am not looking for a guy who's going to nibble and potentially have something bad happen because of that. I got to have swings and misses. That's me. If I'm the manager, that's what I have to do. Now, as far as Freeman, I'm with you. I thought, and who was it, Dennis Eckersley? Didn't even try to pitch Kirk Gibson outside. And the same thing here with Freeman. There's only so far Freeman was going to be able to reach for the ball. He's hurt. He is on one leg. Why in the world do you not pitch him outside and make him reach and cover the outside of the plate? Like, it's just ridiculous. And this is twice now we've seen this happen, and the Dodgers took advantage twice.
Yeah, now, okay, and the other thing is, hey, we know that certain players who are great players just don't play well in the playoffs. And Aaron Judge right now is choking big, choking big. He's doing an A-Rod.
When he was up against Yamamoto, right? And you were seeing how he couldn't hit a curveball. That was the same guy I saw in Double-A where he couldn't identify pitches. All of a sudden, he's back to that in the playoffs, and he just can't even identify a pitch anymore.
No, it's not that he can't identify pitches, Russ. What he's trying to do, he thinks his issue, and they had John Flaherty talking about this on the Yankee broadcast. It's not that he can't identify pitches, because he's very good at that. The problem is he thinks that his problem right now is mechanical. And it's not mechanical. It's basically, everybody knows that he's sitting on fastball. They're not going to throw him a fastball.
No, I get that. But the reason I say identify pitches, and maybe it's not 100% that, is because he's getting curveballs and sliders, and he looks at times like he doesn't even know it's coming. He has to know at this point he should be sitting on a curveball. With Yamamoto, he should have been sitting on a curveball because he's got to know he's not getting a fastball. So to me, there's that problem, and I can't think it's. I think it's part of everything we're saying, honestly.
Yeah, and last thing, like tonight, they're taking out, even though he struggled the last month or so, they're taking out a batting wise. They're taking out a better defensive catcher in Austin Wells, who's thrown out runners, in favor of Jose Trevino. And Jose Trevino this year can't throw out a runner if his life depended on it. And, Ohtani apparently is going to play tonight. So I can just see the Dodgers stealing massive bases on this guy. And if they do that,
that's going to probably be the game plan, because if Ohtani doesn't have power, he's just going to look to get on base. And, yeah, I think you're right. I think they're going to try and small ball this.
Yeah, but what do you want? Would you want him to steal again when he's going to land on?
I'm going to tell him to go in feet first. That's what I'm going to tell Ohtani.
He went in feet
first.
No.
Yes. No, absolutely not. He was on his side sliding, and that's why he jammed his wrist into the ground.
No, watch the replay.
You need to watch the replay.
I did. I was watching it live. He slid in feet first,
and when he was on his side, I swear he was on his side.
When he put his left arm to hold himself up. That's when he jammed his shoulder.
Yeah, I swear he was on his
slide
side.
into the hands first.
Either way, he's going to steal. And I think you're right. I think they're going to try and play small ball because Buehler isn't the same Buehler, but if they could get him some runs early, it might help his cause.
Yeah, gee, how many times are they going to show the Ben Stein from the movie Ferris Bueller's Day Off today? If the Yankees light him up, they'll get Bueller.
Right.
Hello, Hockey World. Today is Monday, October 28th, 2024.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.com and NHLDraftBuzz.com.
And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast.
You find that funny?
No.
Do I amuse you? You think this is funny?
Yes.
Is everything a joke to you?
Thank you, Joe Pesci. And I'm Michael Agello, and this is the HockeyBuzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. We're not going to do a full-length show today unless our buddy Jan Levine joins us. But a few notable things that occurred in the NHL today and something that's going to occur tonight. We'll start with the contract. The Maple Leafs signed defenseman Jake McCabe to a 5-year deal. Now, the AAV on this is $4.51 million, which I think is a pretty reasonable. He was making $4 million on the deal that he signed with Chicago a few years ago. When the Leafs traded for him, Chicago retained 50% of the deal, and the Leafs gave him a first-round pick as part of that deal. Now, they like McCabe. McCabe likes playing in Toronto. He's played pretty well. Knock on wood, he's avoided injuries over the last couple years because he had a lot of injury problems. He's been solid for them, Russ, and it was a good move by Kyle Dubas to get McCabe.
By Kyle Dubas? Yeah,
Kyle Dubas is.
Oh, you mean initially, but not the recent. Okay, that's where my mind went. Yeah, that's true. It was. I mean, we liked it. We just didn't know how durable he was going to be after these injuries that he had. I've always liked him as a player, and I think this is a great deal. Clearly, they had some deferred money playing around with this, and it lowered the AAV, so that was smart. But again, teams are now – this isn't anything new, right? Baseball's been doing deferred payments forever, and there's way more players than Bobby Bonilla that get deferred payments.
Right.
But hockey wasn't doing it that much, and now all of a sudden they're going to start doing it. But again, only the billionaire owners are going to do it, or places like the Leafs that really have massive, coffers. Because the other ones, they don't want to get stung, down the line, especially before they sell a team or something. It's hard to sell a team when you're selling it with, some bad deals like that. But as far as fitting it under the cap and everything, great move.
But this is what you just said is exactly correct. The Leafs are going to have to be the king of deferred payments, especially with the fact, this year you can't do anything with it because they're already locked into the deals that they have right now. But in terms of going forward, now I don't know if they're going to sign Marner. I have a sneaking suspicion they're not going to, but I know I
still think there's a chance. I think it's like this. There's going to be that one last ditch offer. When they're going to do it? They're going to do it right before the Four Nations. That's when they're going to do it because there's going to be some break time, and that's when they're going to say, "Hey, before you go ship off for the Four Nations, let's have a discussion." I think that's when they're going to try.
Yeah, I don't think so, but I think it's going to go into the summer, and then I think he's going to end up hitting free agency. But that's beside what I'm saying.
You don't think they'll trade his rights at the draft at least?
It's possible, but I don't
think you can get a third-round pick for his rights.
Maybe, but I don't think they'll get much more than that. And
but I mean,
they're fairly bereft of draft picks, so they they might do that. But I just don't think that what he is looking for in terms of a cap hit, they're going to, I think they're looking to spend money in other places, and I don't think they want to spend $11.5 to $12 million on Mitch Marner.
Oh, look, my phone's ringing. It's Canadian Tire. I'm not going to answer it.
It's not Tim Hortons. You didn't get some
Canadian Tire. They're the ones who got involved last time. Tim Hortons.
That was a Stamkos.
I know.
But
they might try it again.
Now, somebody was joking in the chat. We'll just do. Dan B says, Joseph Wall apparently is not the answer. When is the trade for Reimer coming? Yeah, okay, Dan. I really want to evaluate Joseph Wall after one start. That's brilliant. I mean, come on, Jesus Christ. Now,
no, I mean, what he's getting at is what we all worry about, the injury factor. That's
agreed.
True.
I mean, it was not a good. I want to see what Joseph Wall does this season. If he's injured 2 or 3 times, then I think everybody would say, all right, fine, you can't depend on him. But they need to find out.
Right.
That's they need to
they definitely
find
do.
out. Yes. So so we're joined by Jan Levine, and with the backlighting, it looks like we're being interviewed on 60 Minutes.
He started coming into focus a little.
There you go. Let there be light, Jan. But
Russ is wearing a Jet shirt. The light is now dark, so you can go with that.
It's dark. It's black.
We're in the dark. We're clearly in the darkness, as Roger said. So
yeah.
Is that what he said?
He did say that, but he's led him into the darkness. So whatever.
Mr. Zerline hasn't helped either, Russ, as we discussed.
Does that mean that they're doing ayahuasca in the?
They may be better off doing ayahuasca right now, given the way they've played, especially defensively.
Maybe
that's the big thing is defensively. All of a sudden they stink, so that's bad.
Maybe they should give some ayahuasca to Aaron Judge. Okay, well, so Jan, what are your thoughts on the McCabe contract? 5 years at $4.5 million. They deferred money to lower the cap hit, a couple $100,000, but like you've seen this now with Draisaitl. Now you've seen it with McCabe. I think that Canadian teams are probably going to start doing this, but the Leafs, especially with the cap crunch that they have with Nylander and with Matthews, and who knows what's going to happen next year. But I think this is a tool that Brad Treliving is going to end up using a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I think we discussed it at the time. I was a little surprised Lafreniere's contract didn't have it either, because I was kind of expecting it. And I really think if they're smart, they do that with Shesterkin's contract also, given what he wants. I mean, that's kind of a way to lower the AAV, but still give him the money that he wants. So just look, if it's allowable by the CBA, and you're in a larger market team or a team that has the funds that they're willing to do it, there's no reason not to. I mean, I think it's a pretty fair deal for McCabe, given what we've seen. Whether or not he ages well over the 5 years, I mean, they're going to have a pretty old defense in several years. But I think the view is that the cap may rise enough at that point in time that if they have to do some kind of a buyout, then that it's going to be less painful. But they get him at a fairly reasonable rate compared to where, I mean, we thought maybe in the $5 million range, $4.5 to $5 million might be somewhere like that. So they got him at clearly a better rate than that. And the deferment reduces the cap impact a little bit as well. So pretty solid deal. And, now they kind of know what they have moving forward and where they need to remediate certain gaps associated with that team.
Yeah, just to your point, Morgan Riley is 30, turning 31. McCabe just turned 31. Oliver Ekman-Larsson just turned 33, and Tanev just turned 34. Now, Tanev, I mean, we know that contract, it's a 6-year deal. He's not finishing out the 6 years. He's playing probably 3, and then maybe retiring, or then maybe LTIR or whatever like that, or there's a buyout. With Riley, Riley's the youngest of them. He's got, I think, 6 years. 6 years left on his deal. I mean, if he slows down, that's going to be a problem. I mean, Ekman-Larsson, I have to say, I'm pleasantly surprised. He's not the goal. No, he's not the guy who played in Arizona. He's not the 20-goal scorer.
No, he can still move the puck, but he's not getting you points.
No, but he's effective, Russ, and that's
fine.
And based on some of the guys that they've been spending money on recently on their blue line, him being effective is enough. And now McCabe, who's been solid for them since they got him, has been. Now, what this also tells you is, and maybe not right this second, but I think fairly soon you're probably going to see a Timothy Liljegren trade, because he's got another year on his contract at $3 million. So I think with you spending 7.5 on Riley, 4.5 on Tanev, 3.5 on Larson, and then 4.5 on McCabe, you can't afford a $3 million bottom pairing defenseman.
No, but you see, this McCabe contract is exactly why I said I would give Lindgren 5x5, but they're going to let him go UFA, and it's going to be a mistake.
I think they kind of like Mancini a lot, and they view him as a guy who maybe can.
It's not the same. Come on.
I agree with you, but again, you have to try to save money somewhere, right? And there's only so much money to go around. And if Igor is going to get what we think he's going to get, right, that reduces the amount of capital that's available.
Well,
especially
saved money on Lafreniere, technically. They've saved money on backup
they
goalies.
$500,000 probably at least on Lafreniere.
Yeah, they've saved money on goaltending. They're not spending a lot on their bottom six.
Well, okay. Can you conceivably move Braden Schneider higher up in the lineup?
A little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Because you're gonna re-sign Keandre Miller. He's under control. I mean, you can qualify.
Depending on what the deal is. I mean, there could be a deal breaker for that, but yes.
Right. But and Trouba, the thing is, Trouba's played well enough right now that you could conceivably trade him instead of having to buy him out.
Yeah, if he wants to. If he doesn't want to get traded, guess what?
Then he gets bought out. Then
Look, he played well last year until he got hurt. I mean, I said it last year also. And then he came back and clearly was limited in the playoffs. And that was a major factor. And look, Schneider is not a physical defenseman. He's a little bit of a hybrid, better puck mover than clearly Lindgren.
Yeah.
But he's not as physical, and nor is he expected to be as physical because that's not his game.
He's still young. I think he will get a little more physical. He was at the lower levels. He's just he's not there yet. Like, how old is he? 23, 24?
24, I think he is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he may be a guy that at 25, he'll be a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, right now the Rangers, they're sort of in a holding pattern until the off season when it comes to their blue line and comes to some of these.
And Robertson could break in next year too.
Yeah. But I think obviously they want to get this situation with Shesterkin resolved before the end of the season. I mean, ideally, when did the Lundqvist deal get signed? Wasn't it during
January?
The year?
January.
It was late. Yeah.
So
they supposedly had worked on the parameters of the deal beforehand. Now look, and I said at the time and was criticized broadly. I thought they overpaid him by $1 million a year at the time.
Right.
But again, I said
he took no hometown discount to try to stay there.
No, listen, he's got to live in New York, Jan.
His endorsements, I think, were kind of covering that.
Well, maybe overseas. I know he had that one hair endorsement overseas. But here's the thing. You have to look at the Rangers. We know that they have always had to pay a high price for goalies. And if they don't, they end up paying the price because then you end up with Mike Dunham in net instead of someone like Lundqvist or someone like Shesterkin. So they're going to pay it, and everybody's going to bitch about it. That's what's going to happen.
But the mistake that was made was, and I'm not mistaken, that it was a bridge deal. What was it? Was it 2 or 3 years that he's on currently?
No, he's on a 4-year deal that he got about $5.9 million a year at the time. And some people thought at the time they may have paid too much, and most of us thought that it was a very fair and probably would end up being a steal of a contract, which clearly it has been.
Yeah, and what a lot of people may think that they should have gotten him signed to the 8-year deal and spent the money then, and maybe they wouldn't have been able to afford it then. But and how do you know he's going to be as good as this? But he was showing signs already of being as good.
No, but back then nobody was doing that with a goalie. Nobody.
And he may not have wanted the longer team deal either.
No, that's true. But I'm going to say this, Jan. Nobody was doing that with a goalie back then with a young goalie. Now everybody's doing it because they don't want to pay even more. So now everybody's really worried because the cap's going up. Back then the cap wasn't going up, so they're like, we're not paying a young goalie that much.
He got a 4-year, $22.7 million deal in August of 2021 was what he got.
Right. They weren't going to give him 8 then, no matter how good he was.
No.
Yeah. Just look at the Western Conference because we looked at the East last week, and I just wanted to touch on this a little bit. The Winnipeg Jets are 8-0. I mean, we thought that they were good last year, and they, if they hadn't had a slump in the last few weeks of the season, they probably would have won the Central Division. They ended up finishing in that 2-3 slot and ended up losing in the first round. But they had a great year, and Hellebuck won the Vezina. But Russ, they're playing the Leafs tonight, and they're 8-0. And
I'm surprised they're 8-0. I'm not surprised they're really good. I picked them to go to the Western Conference Final because I said that Hellebuck's going to win another Vezina because I think he's poised to win it most years. He's not going to win it every year.
Mhm.
And I knew that guys like Perfetti were going to start to really become a factor, and he is. And I also feel like their defense is underrated, and their centers are great. They really are strong down the middle. So when you have that kind of combination, I just think Winnipeg, just for whatever reason, because they're in Winnipeg, just gets overlooked that way. But they're a really good team, and they've been really good. But now I think they're at the point where they're still good, and other teams have weakened to the point now where they're even a bigger factor. I think that's what's the issue is. Like Edmonton's weaker now.
Yeah. I mean, Jan, right now I look at, the Jets, Kyle Connor, Scheifele, Ehlers, Neil Pionk, 10 points. Perfetti, 9 points. Niederreiter, Appleton, Morrissey, 8 points. It's very balanced. It's not like one guy lighting it up. And then you have Hellebuck, and you even have Eric Comrie, who was a sieve in Buffalo. Now, I have to give Buffalo some blame for that because Buffalo defensively was not – well, they were better than they were 2 years ago, but they weren't great last year.
He's comfortable there, though, Mike. That's the thing with Comrie.
Well, right. He's comfortable with the goaltender coach. He's comfortable being the understudy to Hellebuck. Right. Hellebuck's number –
That's his comfort level.
Right. He came to Buffalo.
He's been okay. He's not been great in his 2 starts. He's been okay in his 2 starts, Comrie.
Well, he made 39 saves each game. He made 39 saves in the first one, so he was pretty good now.
Look, to me, the couple of things are, first of all, we talked before the season, if Nikolai Ehlers can stay healthy, it lengthens that lineup tremendously, which is something they lacked a little bit when he got hurt last year. As Russ said, I think we all expected Cole Perfetti to take another step forward. Because I thought he's a little bit underpaid compared to what we thought he might be, and he is taking that step forward. You look at that third line of Niederreiter, Appleton, and Lowry. It's a pretty darn good, effective third line. When we talk about, and what's going on in New York with Cooley, Kakko, and Hedl, to me, Winnipeg's third line is probably one of the more effective third lines that are out there. Absolutely. Because they can play a physical style, but they also have the offensive capability to burn you if you give him the opportunity. To me, I still think they need some third pairing defensive improvement. Pionk's not going to score at the level he's scoring at. I mean, he had a good year his first year in Winnipeg, and then he was, subsumed a little bit and superseded by Josh Morrissey, which we expect because everybody was waiting for Morrissey to take that step forward, and it took him a couple of years to do so. But
Morrissey's underrated still.
Yeah, very much. So they're a well-balanced team, but I do think if they're going to target somebody, they're going to look to probably improve their bottom pair down the road. Colin Miller's fine. Nothing great, but as a collective unit, as you said, and look, people in New York or people on the East Coast don't see how good Scheifele is. Scheifele is an exceedingly really good player on all 200 feet. We just don't see him that much in the East Coast. For those that are on the East Coast, don't pay attention enough to know how good he is. So he's a really, really, really good center. He just doesn't get the publicity he deserves.
Well, one thing that it's 8 games, obviously, and we're not talking about going to the end of the season, but there was a lot of talk of Ehlers being the guy that might get traded at the deadline. If they're contending for a cup, then they're not trading him. They'll keep him and they'll let him walk in free agency or try to re-sign him if they can. But they're not gonna use him as a rental at the deadline, or unless they trade him and then try to trade for somebody else who they think they can keep. But so. The Dallas Stars, we talked about that off the post with Taylor Laird. They're bizarre that that 7-2 and they're really good, but then they come to Buffalo and lose.
Lay an egg, basically. They basically laid an egg against them.
They did, and it's not. I mean. That's the thing. Almost everybody in the NHL can lose to almost any. Taylor Baird. I'm sorry, I said Laird.
Yeah.
But and except if you're San Jose, who, Russ, are they setting themselves up for James Higgins because they're 0-7-2?
Yeah, of course they are. Why? They're not anywhere close to being good yet, and they finally have their young goalie, but they're going to still wait a year or two on him. So, of course they're trying to do that because why wouldn't you?
And Celebrini's hurt, which isn't helping matters either.
No. And Will
And as
Smith's
Russ
going
said,
to take a year
Askarov
or
is
two.
sitting, biding his time for the Barracudas until he's finally ready to get called up.
Right, and it'll take a year or two for Smith to kick in, and that's what they want. They want to build that kind of team. So it wasn't good. They need more of that.
And then Quentin Musty will be ready for at least playing in the AHL.
Yep.
I think it's probably we need to talk about, Mike, is Nashville. I mean, that's I mean, Brady Shea clearly misses Carolina because he's been wolf bad since he's gotten there. I mean, Stamkos gets his exposure to Tampa tonight, and hopefully that maybe once he gets that out of the way, maybe that'll be the thing that kind of kickstarts his engine, because maybe this has just been circling on the calendar for a while, and getting it out of the way will help. But he really hasn't settled in. I mean, look, as a team collectively, they look like a team that have pieces that have been cobbled together that aren't fitting together properly. We know eventually they'll get there. The only question is how long will it take them to kind of arrive at that point?
I picked them as a wild card team. I think they were overrated. I don't think they're going far in the playoffs.
In that division, it's like, I mean, I didn't think there was any way they'd finish in the top three. At least I don't think I did when I made our predictions. I think I said, Dallas, Winnipeg, Colorado, and then Minnesota and Nashville or it's definitely. I think 5 teams were coming out of that one because the Pacific Division sucks. It's terrible.
Yeah, we all agreed when we did that the Pacific is not good.
Now, why should we be shocked? Vegas is 6-2-1. I mean,
they're a good team, and Mark Stone is playing out of his mind right now
because he's healthy.
Right, yeah. But now he's healthy. Stone, unfortunately, as we've seen, doesn't remain healthy for too long, or something happens. But also, look, they have Tomas Hertl for a full season this year also, which doesn't hurt them as their number 2 center behind Eichel.
And Eichel's got 15 points. Barbashev's got 7 goals. Petrangelo's got 11 points. We didn't talk about the Shea Theodore contract, which everybody said.
Oh, that's true.
Where are they going to get the money to sign Shea Theodore?
I kept hearing people say, well, they're going to trade Shea Theodore. It's like, why would they do that?
Well, the thing is, they'll find somebody
Vegas.
else.
They keep printing money. Come on, they just go to the casino and grab a couple of chips, and we're all good.
Yeah.
The thing is, they'll find somebody to trade to create the space to fit Shea Theodore. I mean, the cap is going up, but there's going to have to be somebody.
No, but he is another one that's very underrated. What he does and what he means to that team. I don't think people watch Shea Theodore enough. That's what I would say.
I mean, okay, I'm just looking it up right now. So next year you've got Eichel, and here's the funny thing: you've got Eichel at $10 million, and he's entering the final year of his contract next year. So they could. I mean, he's only 29 years old, and he's won a cup with them. So he's staying there, right? But you've got Eichel at 10, Stone at 9.5. He's got 2 more years left. Hertl is at 6.7, Carlson at 5.9, and Carlson's going to be the guy that goes.
Yeah,
easily. He's definitely the guy who's going to go.
In fact, we thought he was going to go this year, but
right.
So, but now Theodore is making 7.4, and you've got 3 defensemen in Pietrangelo, Hanifin at 7.3, and Theodore at 7.4. So 3 defensemen making over $7 million.
Yeah, well, they have to, because if you notice, those are all other players from other teams. They're not producing a lot via the draft because they barely ever have draft picks. So eventually their day is going to come. Like, you can't live on free agency forever.
We've said that now for 3 years, and they just keep kicking the can down the road, right? It will eventually come back to bite them, because you can't keep going that same way. But look, none of us saw the Hertl deal happening at the deadline last year, and that just got them a number 2 center for the future for the next 5 years on that team.
Right. But there'll be a day.
Well, Brendan Brisson should be. That's the only prospect that they have, Russ. It's Brendan.
He'll get moved.
Yeah, he'll probably get moved.
Come on, Mike. They room everybody else. Why not him?
I mean, they're gonna collapse one day, like a lot of hotels on Fremont Street.
Like the crop.
There you go. The Calgary Flames are 5-2-1. Discuss.
Surprising.
And they've done it without Yegor Sharangovich being there either, because he just came back from his injury as well. So they've got a lot of talent on that team. I mean, they're I don't think they're an elite team. I think they've played over their head, but Kadri's had a resurgence right this year. Kuzmenko getting out of Vancouver was the best thing that ever happened to him.
Huberdeau
He's
again.
been very good there, right? Michael Backlund's been good. Coleman has been solid there, and defensively, Rasmus Anderson has reverted back to what we saw 2 years ago.
Yeah, and they are getting production. They're getting good production out of Connor Zary. They're getting good production out of Matt Coronado. Those are some of their top draft picks, and they're helping. Dustin Wolf is exactly what I thought he would be, a really good goalie. I don't think he's all there yet, but that's why they're getting early returns, because that stuff's happening. Will it keep up the whole year? Probably not. But will they be this year's Flyers from last year? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, based on Flamester, we know that Rasmus Anderson's going to get traded at the deadline because Flamester's been asking about Rasmus Anderson and where he's going to go every single day. But I do think like when they fall back into that, struggling to stay in the playoff race, that's a guy, if he doesn't sign a new contract with them, he's probably one of the top 3 or 4 defensemen in terms of rentals that are going to be out there.
He'll be one of the top guys. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, right-handed, solid defenseman.
Mackenzie Weegar of this, free agent class.
Yeah, maybe. The last thing though, we wrote about it yesterday for Hockey Buzz. After Dursey and after Marino got hurt for Utah, they haven't won a game. They're 0-3 with the 2 veteran defensemen out. Now the thing is, it's like, okay, they had those 2 plus Sergachev plus a couple other Ian Cole. I mean, or I think it was Ian Cole. But they're
getting long in the tooth.
Right, but as a 5'6", you can survive that, Russ. But if you're boosting him to 20 minutes a night, you can't. And that's the thing. It's like you're getting to the point now where Utah, they're not going to survive if this new ownership.
They're not competitive. They tried a little bit. They spent a little bit. Fans are excited. They're going to make a lot of money, but they're not competitive yet. They're just not.
Yeah, there's a lot of talent on that team up front, though. The problem is your back end now is exposed, and it's also hurting Connor Ingram as well because he's got no defense in front of him.
I don't know if Connor Ingram is really a number 1. I don't think so.
He's a 1B in my opinion, but he was
not a
filling
1.
the role of a 1.
They've got to get a 1.
Yeah. Interesting matchup tonight here in River City, where the Sabres, who are have won the last 3, are playing the Florida Panthers. Different than the last time. And I hate this about the NHL schedule. Florida played here 2 weeks ago, and now they come back, and that's the last time they'll be here the entire season. It's like, I mean, can you spread the games out a little bit? I mean, I remember one year when I think it was Toronto and Boston played 4 times in the span of a month, and then they didn't play again until the playoffs or
they did that with the Rangers Islanders, I think 2 years ago also. There was like a 4-month spread. It was crazy.
Yeah, it's asinine. I mean, you can plug it in to spread the games out a little bit.
Yeah. I did want to also bring up Alexei Kolosov's first game.
Oh, yeah, please.
Because, again, this is a situation where I believe the Flyers wouldn't have put him in the NHL yet if Dan Milstein didn't work some sort of deal out. Because all of a sudden, right before, Kolosov gets called up, it's like, hey, Kolosov's getting called up. Hey, he's the first Belarusian goalie, and he's got this big gold font for Gold whatever sports that Dan Milstein is. And all of a sudden, it's like, yeah, we're going to throw him in there. And I had said I didn't think it was a good idea because he wasn't playing well in Lehigh. He didn't play well last night. He didn't play bad, but you could see he's not ready for the NHL. He's got talent. He's 22. Not going to stay up. The team's going to just tell him, listen, you need to work on these things, and hopefully you'll work on them here. But for fans, it's like some of them are like, well, he's better than Fedotov because they both have the same save percentage. They're both in 833. It doesn't matter. What matters is Fedotov's 27, and he could deal with not being with the greatest defense or bad team more than this rookie can. So that's why there's not a lot of 21, 22-year-old rookies and playing net in the league because of this. And so, yeah, he'll go back down. I think he's a good goalie for the future. Randy's saying Anderson's not a free agent. So, Mike, you got to look that up.
I thought this was.
No, he's got one more year. He's got one more year.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Randy.
I apologize. Well, Randy, you've been
Math is
talking about
UFA.
trading him so much.
Math
I
and
blame
Kuzmenko
you.
are both UFAs. So is Barry.
I blame you, Flamester. You've been talking about trading him so much.
Yeah. So anyhow, for the Flyers fans, I think they might hold 3 goalies for a little while, but I think Fedotov is going to still play because that's who the investment's in right now. And I don't think they're in a position where they could start, starting a guy with really no experience and hoping he gets better by midseason. They're already at the bottom. They're the worst team in the conference. You can see where things are going. They'll get a little better. They will.
Yeah. All right. Good show, guys. We'll be back on Wednesday with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Russ Cohen, for Jan Levine, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching. And remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.